right, guys, welcome back to another video. We have an interesting article here from Bloomberg about the Xbox Activision Blizzard acquisition titled "Microsoft Expands Game Pass as Regulators Fret Over Activision Deal." So we got some more information that Game Pass is expanding, it's growing, it is doing good, and they talk about this in this article as well as related to the Xbox Activision Blizzard acquisition. Specifically, they start here by saying its transformation is beginning to raise hackles among regulators who say Microsoft could be even more dominant in the industry's next era, especially if it completes its proposed $69 billion acquisition of gaming giant Activision Blizzard. Now, they're specifically talking about the Xbox console and how it is a console that when they released Game Pass, when Phil Spencer came out and announced Xbox Game Pass, and then they moved on with creating the ecosystem that they have now with cloud gaming, the play anywhere, the having the availability to play it on PC, play it on your mobile device, all of that type of stuff. Xbox has transformed itself to be the company that potentially is going to be the leader in the future. And I've talked about this multiple times throughout my videos that today we're still looking at console sales and people still have to use that as a measure of the success of who is going to be the leader in the gaming industry for the future. But the fact of the matter is, you sit back, you take a look at everything, the landscape of gaming. I truly believe even if this deal doesn't go through, Xbox is going to be the leader going forward because they have set themselves up in a better position than PlayStation has. And PlayStation is behind. They are trying to catch up with subscription, with cloud gaming. And whether you like that or not as a PlayStation fan, it's the truth based off of the moves that they have been making by expanding PlayStation Plus, getting more into the subscription, providing those 3 tiers, going out and buying Bungie because they know they are far behind in multiplayer games as a service, and that if they don't catch up on that, they're going to be losing out on a lot of money, and then eventually will be overtaken by the likes of Xbox and Microsoft. And that is something that these regulators potentially are taking into account right now. It's the future and who is set up to be the more dominant company in the future. And I truly think it is going to be Xbox, whether this deal goes through or it doesn't go through. It continues on here, and they talk about Game Pass, $10 to $15 a month, 400 games on Xbox. And in terms of the growth of Game Pass, as of January, the number of users who access the service on 3 or more devices had grown 20% compared with the same period the year before. On February 28th, the company will expand Game Pass to dozens of new markets, including Latin America, the Middle East, and Eastern Europe, almost doubling the number of countries where it is available to 86. And this is huge. This is a huge thing because the more people that get access, the more you democratize gaming, the more it will grow and the more revenue money Xbox will make, which will allow them to continue to expand. And this is obviously their vision. They know that in certain parts of the world, certain demographics, certain places, it is just harder to be able to get access to game consoles, to be able to afford game consoles and all that type of stuff. But you bring in something like Xbox Game Pass, you bring in Xbox Cloud Gaming, that opens it up to just way more people to get in at a much lower cost and more people to get to experience games, which is always, at the end of the day, I think a good thing, which is why I'm high on Xbox this generation, because they have opened up gaming and made it easier for everybody to actually access and play games. And with Activision Blizzard, if the deal does pass, it's just going to add more access, which I don't see in any way as a bad thing for the gaming industry. You have Sarah Bond here who comments and says, when I look at the industry today, that's not where it is, but it's where we want to be. And they're specifically talking about the Netflix X gaming experience and games and Game Pass running on a wide range of different devices, which they're close to that. I mean, you look at everything that it can run on, it essentially can run on anything. I mean, it's not just your mobile phone and PC and Xbox now, it's on anything with an internet connection, essentially, because it's through the browser. Like we saw videos of it running on a smart fridge. You can play Game Pass in your VR headset, all of these different areas. It just continues to expand. And like I said, a big thing is because they've created that access via the browser. So if you can get access to that, you can play Xbox games pretty much anywhere. Now, in terms of the subscribers, to say it has more than 25 million subscribers, which is very notable and done very well compared to other competitors like Amazon Luna, which I don't really hear anything about Amazon Luna. I don't know if anybody out there has it or used it, but to me, it just seems like it's not even close to being able to compete with Xbox Game Pass. You have Google Stadia, which obviously shut down. And then you have Sony with PlayStation Plus, which is still behind for sure compared to Xbox Game Pass. One of the main reasons is because they don't want to offer their big first-party games into the subscription service, which is a huge value differentiator that Game Pass has over PlayStation. And we'll see. I'm going to stick with my prediction that we will see PlayStation add their first party games day and date at some point in the future, or very close to release, maybe like a week after or something, so they can cash in on people who want to pick it up and play and pay full price to play it earlier than people who would get it on the subscription service. I do see PlayStation doing that in the future, although they've come out and said that they aren't going to do that. They also said that they weren't going to get into subscription. They did with PlayStation Plus. They also said that their virtuous cycle was the way that is the best thing for them, that they're going to continue to that, which is their big first party games. And they go out and purchase Bungie because they know that they need to get more into multiplayers and games as a service. So they say a lot of things, but in reality, they're looking at the numbers and what's going to drive the revenues to the highest point possible. Now, it says they go over the advantages. Like, we have already gone through all this with the CMA documents, the advantages that Xbox has with their infrastructure and currently with Xbox Game Pass, and the latency that Game Pass and Xbox Cloud Gaming provides, where it's almost getting to a point where you don't really feel any latency at all. Now, there is that comparison with NVIDIA GeForce Now, which I believe probably has better latency. Like, it's more one-to-one with which you're pressing on your controller to what's showing up on screen. I haven't tried it recently, but we saw information come out with, I believe it was the CMA documents, or it was a response to the CMA documents, where they're using their 4090s and they're essentially saying that they have created a way to create such low latency. It's almost better to be playing it right now through their cloud compared to, I guess, certain builds that people have with their PC, something along those lines. But they've done a really good job of reducing the latency with NVIDIA GeForce Now. Now, we have Joost van Drunen, who we talked about in my other video yesterday, who is an analyst, and he's talking about Game Pass and how it's going to be taking over. He says it's a big industrial-sized investment, specifically the Activision Blizzard merger, and says by taking games out of the box away from the PlayStations and Xboxes and turning them into a digital service or ultimately a cloud-based service, Microsoft finally found a way to outmaneuver the PlayStation. And that's it. That's what I think everybody is seeing right now for the future of games. This is what Xbox's trump card is at the end of the day. Cloud gaming. They have the infrastructure, they have the technology, they currently have the huge lead with Game Pass and stuff, that they are going to use all of that, continue to grow it, and then it will almost be impossible for PlayStation to catch up to them. However, it doesn't mean that, I don't think it means that Microsoft and Xbox will be a monopoly and anti-competitive. It just means, like everything in capitalism, like everything in business, when a company sits idle, doesn't try to evolve, doesn't follow the market properly, doesn't adjust to the future, they will eventually lose their market dominant position and then have to catch up. And they could regain it at some point by making other moves. But as of we've seen since the PS4, even the PS3, they did well with the PS3 near the end of the generation, but through the PS4 all the way until now, because of how bad the launch was for the Xbox One, PlayStation sat idle. They didn't really do anything crazy to try to revolutionize and expand and get ready for the future. They just thought, hey, we're going to be continue doing what we're doing. People are buying our consoles like crazy. They're still buying our consoles like crazy. We don't need to adjust. And we are just going to hope that the market doesn't change, which clearly it is changing going forward, which is going to be subscription and cloud-based gaming. Now, this next part here, they talk about how more people are experiencing Xbox for the first time and it's being their primary place to play. One of the things that I have very much interest in is how is Game Pass and cloud gaming doing in places like Japan? And we don't have those numbers, but I feel like that's going to be huge for Xbox. They're not really going to focus as much as trying to get people to buy an Xbox Series X or S, but getting people to play Game Pass on their mobile devices. But when it comes to Vietnam, they say Game Pass memberships in Vietnam doubled in January alone and has doubled over the past 2 years across Asia, where 80% of the online population plays mobile games. So that's huge. These Asian countries, these Asian areas that they're expanding into are taking part in Game Pass, and it's expanding exponentially. Like they say, doubled over the past 2 years. 80% are playing, or a country where 80% of them actually play online mobile games. Now, there's some more interesting stuff that they go over here. They talk about Candy Crush and King and how that's going to be big for them, trying to get into the mobile market, take on the likes of Google and Android, and how Xbox has that huge ecosystem with Windows operating system, Xbox Cloud Gaming, and Azure, which is all part of their ecosystem. As we do know, though, with Xbox Cloud Gaming, Azure is a distinct difference than what they're using to actually stream out the games with that service. Now, the other thing people love to talk about when it comes to Game Pass and cloud gaming and the subscription model is it bad for developers? Does it cannibalize sales? And yes, of course, it will cannibalize a certain amount of sales for some games, like first-party Xbox games. It will probably cannibalize a lot of those sales, but it will still overall make them a lot of money because people will be subscribing to Game Pass to play the games rather than going out and buying them. And then they'll continuously pay into this subscription service for months and months and months, and probably check out other games, probably make purchases within the Xbox ecosystem. So I think overall it is a net benefit to cannibalize a certain amount of sales in order to get people into the ecosystem. But we've heard a lot about No More Robots and the founder Mike Rose, about his games and Descenders, and just the success of that. And they talk about some of these things here, which counter the argument that Game Pass is bad for developers, bad for games, and will just overall hurt your sales numbers. In terms of the Descenders, if you remember, it entered into the service on 2019. And then after it entered into the service, they say sales quadrupled soon after they added it to Game Pass. And now they're trying to get all of their games into Game Pass because of that, which is just an absolute huge jump for a smaller studio with a smaller game. You put it into subscription service, people find out about the game, they go and play it, and quadrupling your sales, something that would have never happened if you didn't put it into the service. And then we have another developer here, Jason Kingsley, the CEO. So the CEO, of Rebellion Developments, the British maker of Zombie and Alien vs. Predator games, says that when they add titles to Game Pass, many of his company's other games benefit from a noticeable increase in sales despite not being on the service themselves. Between 20% and 30% of people who play games on Game Pass also purchase additional downloadable content. Something like I just mentioned, they see a game, they're going to get attracted to other stuff that they haven't seen before. They potentially are going to go out and buy those games even if they aren't in the service, and also spend money on DLC within the Xbox store, giving more money to the developers, giving more money to Xbox. It's a win-win at the end of the day. So that is this article. They are going over the power advantage that they think Xbox is going to have if this deal does happen, although their power advantage, I think, is currently there right now, whether this deal happens or not. And going forward into the future, they're going to have a huge advantage because they've set themselves up for the future of gaming, which is subscription and cloud gaming. And PlayStation is going to be behind them for a while. They may make changes. Like I said, they could turn things around. They have their first party titles. That would make a huge difference. The biggest thing will be the infrastructure with cloud gaming. Can they get it on the same level as Xbox Cloud Gaming? Can they get it on the same level as GeForce Now? But I'm going to leave that there, guys. Let me know what your thoughts on all of this stuff is and what you think the future is going to be like with gaming. Do you think Xbox will be able to be ahead of PlayStation in the future, even if this deal doesn't go through? If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.